John chapter 19, verse 28. After this, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said, to fulfill the scriptures, I thirst. This is the shortest of the statements from the cross. 2 words in English, only one in Greek. But in that short sentence is Jesus' acknowledgement of his suffering. A suffering that was planned, a suffering that had purpose, and a suffering that was personal to him and is personal to us. Knowing that all was now finished, Jesus' suffering was planned. The plan of salvation, rescue of sinful man by a merciful God was in place before the creation. Jesus knew from before the beginning what would take place. Isaiah said that it was the will of the Lord to crush him. There was no surprise in any of this. Peter recognized it after the fact that Jesus was delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. Jesus knew what was coming next, and even in his unspeakable condition, he knew that his suffering was part of the great plan of salvation. It was necessary. Jesus spoke, he said, to fulfill the scriptures. Paul told us that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the scriptures. Everything that was taking place on that day, on that hill, on that cross, had been written about, in some cases hundreds and hundreds of years previous, a detail here, a pointer there. There was nothing random or accidental about the events of that day. They had been foretold, they had been disclosed many times. Jesus' suffering had purpose. Isaiah foretold of the Messiah as a suffering servant. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrow. And as Adrian pointed out, the psalmist described the dying Christ in Psalm 22, including his parched mouth. My tongue sticks to my jaws. And in verse 21 of Psalm 69, we see that for my thirst, they gave me sour wine to drink. Vinegar, we know it as. Jesus suffered in fulfillment of the scriptures. His suffering had purpose. I thirst. Not his final word, but it spoke so much. He revealed his suffering, dying humanity. The God-man, fully divine, fully human, but having set aside his glory, his privilege, to suffer and die as a human person. The suffering of Jesus is the suffering of a human being. Personal to him, yes. In his humanity, yes. But to us, personal because he is God. Not remote, not far away, not an idea, not a theory, not something we only think about, but God, real, personal, here with us, Emmanuel, flesh and blood, who experienced human life, pain and injury, and violence of great magnitude. Peter said it so well. He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. The suffering of Jesus was planned. It had a purpose, and the effect of it is personal to each one who has been healed as its result. But as much as Jesus revealed his true human suffering in his words, he also knew he would receive a bit of vinegar to loosen his tongue, to extend his suffering a bit longer. It was not given out of mercy. It was only to keep him going, that his suffering might continue a bit longer. But it allowed him to speak. He had another statement yet to make. Let us stand and sing to our God.
You may be seated.